So with our range meaning y value, it's actually the other side of our equation. This entire 5 goes in right here on the left-hand side, okay? So when that 5 gets plugged in on the left, it looks like this. We subtract 6 from both sides. We get -1 equals negative x. When we divide both sides by -1, we get that x equals 1. Alternatively, if you don't like that, throw the graph in your calculator. This was y equals -x plus 6, or was it? Yep, -x plus 6. And when I look at the table, I'm looking for a range or a y value of 5. Well, y value of 5 is right there, meaning my x value is +1, just like we just saw. Okay? 19 is one of the tougher problems on here. These are those literal equations that we just absolutely hate so far. They're new, they're hard, there's a lot of stuff going against you on this problem, but you can do this. Okay? You can do this problem. Now, we want to solve this for y. That's something we're used to, that's something we're good at. That means we want to get y all by itself. You always undo that addition subtraction first, so I'm going to subtract ax on both sides. We get that by equals c minus ax. And when we divide by b on both sides, we get y all by itself. But the right-hand side looks really ugly. It's really ugly, but it's an answer. And it's the correct answer. Notice, right here in this step, a lot of people probably would write this as -ax plus c. That's not wrong. I just realized when I was looking at the answers that all of them have the negative signs in the middle, so I figured they probably want the minus sign in the middle. You would have gotten the same answer. You would have gotten down to this right here, and you would have just had to realize that these two need to be flipped to get us to answer B. Number 20, one of the easier problems on here, guys. You have to remember your function families. Linear means some sort of slanted line. Okay? Exponential means elbow. They're going to have one single curve to them. Quadratic, those are our U shapes, or some people say an N shape when it's downwards. And then the rarely used one, but it is used, is constant. Constant is a horizontal line. Well, this is clearly an elbow, therefore it is exponential. 21, same song, second verse, identify the function family. Right here, we also know that quadratics have an x squared. Exponentials have some number, we'll call it, I don't know, a 3, with an x in the exponent, and linears are boring. But why take the risk? Okay, why take the risk when we can put this in our calculator, because we're all a lot better with the shapes, most of us are. Why take the risk? Why not just put this in the calculator and see how it goes? When we graph this, we see that it is indeed a quadratic, a parabola. Number 22 is the most work-intensive problem on the test. Okay? We want slope-intercept form. So we want y equals mx plus b. Okay? The way that you're supposed to go about doing this problem is starting in point slope form. Okay? I'm going to definitely need some more room to work this. So our point was -5, -4, and our slope was 3/5. And I've got to start in point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Well, there's my x1 and my y1. It's the only point they gave me, so it has to be those. And it's time to plug these in. Y minus y1, which is minus a -4, equals m, which is 3/5, x minus x1, which is -5. Well, we don't keep them written like this. We clean it up. Y plus 4 equals 3/5, x plus 5. Doesn't that look a lot better? Basically, these two negative signs become a positive. These two negative signs combine to be a positive. Well, before we start moving pieces around, we want to go ahead and distribute. You don't have to, but it makes it a little bit easier. This is 3/5 x. We are aware that should have been our slope. We knew that was our slope because they gave it to us. That actually is something that could have let you eliminate two options right off the board because 1/5 is wrong and -1 is wrong. Okay? Now we're basically just down to looking for that intercept correctly. 3/5 times 5, guys, be careful. If you're not sure, do this in the calculator. This is a 5/1, meaning that 5 in the numerator and this 5 in the denominator cancel out, leaving us with just the 3. And then finally, we subtract 4 from both sides. When I do that, I get that y equals 3/5 x minus 1. Now, there is another way to do this problem, okay? But it involves a lot of calculator punching in and a lot of reading graphs and reading graphs correctly, okay? I would just advise doing it this way. You should know how to do this. We've done a lot of these, okay? We've done a lot of these. So our slope helped us eliminate down to this, and we had a -1 there. Number 23 is pretty straightforward, just writing an equation, but you have to be very careful of the different intricacies between these. This is $29.99 for yellow curtains, okay? For green curtains, we're looking for $18.99, and our total needs to be $7.50. Well, that gets rid of that right there and right there. People look and say, oh, but that 515 was right there. It wasn't really a part of the problem. I put that in there as a distractor, okay? So we're down to just two equations right here. We need to just make sure our yellow went with our yellow and our green went with our green. Well, that's $18.99 green and $29.99 yellow. Yellow is Y, green is G. That's my answer. 24 and 25. Tomorrow, expect one of these to be y-intercept, please. Okay? And you need to know the difference. An x-intercept is always a point on the x-axis, meaning it is some number, comma, 0. That means my y is a 0. Our y-intercepts, which we don't have one of on this review, but it works pretty much the same way, is always 0, comma, some number, meaning my x has to be 0. Well, for this problem, we just have x-intercepts, or for this review. And so I know I need to take this 0 and plug it in for y. That means 2x minus 8 times 0 equals 32. Those are going to cancel. I get that 2x equals 32. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 16. And I look at x equals 16 as not an answer. But I know that this was just half of my point. The other half is always 0. So it should be 16, comma, 0. And look at Mr. Sorrell being a jerk. If you didn't know what an x-intercept looked like, but you could find 16, you were going to get it wrong. 25, same song, second verse. We're looking for an x-intercept, which means I plug in a 0 for my y. I get 0 equals -1/2 x plus 3, and I want to solve this. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Those are going to cancel out right there. I get that -3 equals -1/2 x. And now it's the tricky part. I want x to be positive, and I want that fraction to go away. Well, if I want a fraction to go away, I multiply the whole equation, or both sides, by the denominator. Okay? But if I wanted to also change signs, I can kill two birds with one stone, and I can multiply everything by a -2. That gives me a 6 equals x. Type this into your calculator, -1/2 times -2, just to make sure I did it right. -1/2 times -2 gives me a +1 or a +1x. This is the half of my answer that goes to 6, 0. Should have been D.